Welcome to the Health In Show. This is Debby Bruck, founder of Homeopathy World Community, and this is an affiliate program of that network. We have today a special guest, Dr. Robert Bruck, who's going to call in shortly, and we have my co-host, Dr. Deepak Sharma of New Delhi, India, of the Orbits Clinic, where he has 7 clinics and thousands of patients. And if you're interested in receiving some advice, assistance, and guidance with homeopathic care, I would recommend to give him a call. Also, and we're going to thank Amnon Nissan of Nissan Communications, a radio show producer, and for making this a reality for all of us, that we can get together and have a conversation about things that concern us. And today, one of my major concerns, besides health, well, it's intimately tied to health, is what's going on in our environment. And in the news, we are getting information about things that impact us and affect our lives, affect our children's lives, their health, their development, whether it is, and I have a whole list of things. And, you know, the thing about it is, whenever I think about the environment and what's going on today, it's easy to fall into a state of despair and depression. Would you agree with that, Dr. Sharma? Are you there?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Debbie. And yes, I'm agree with that the poisons is spreading everywhere in the environment, and the poison is still destroying us, destroying the animals, destroying the plants, destroying everything in the world. And we would have initiative to solve out this problem. Many of the countries are working in to solve the problem of this poisoning in the environment. And
well, we do hope that the governments are helping to do that. I personally, I have become, over the last number of years, from a state of innocence and belief and all of that good stuff that thinks that people in the government are here to help us. I have turned the other side, and I'm a skeptic. And
this is Dr. Bruck, and I second that.
Yay, you're in here early. Yeah. Dr. Bruck, welcome. And
hi there.
I wanted to.
Welcome,
we're just starting the show because we had a little short delay, and so you're at the very beginning of the show.
Terrific.
And I'm going to give you a formal introduction, but first I want to just mention a message that came in my email this morning from Chabad.org, and it says, believe this or not, it says, "Why does man destroy? Why does he wreak havoc in the world? This world was designed so that there is no progress forward without first a step backward. Night comes before day, pain before pleasure, confusion before wisdom. But then God made man, who strives beyond the design of things, who yearns to leap past nature, to embrace the infinite. Man, too, must first fail so that he can leap upward. But since his leap is beyond nature, he must first fall beneath it. That is sin, a fall beneath nature. And that is the power of return to leap beyond nature." And that leap beyond nature, this is the words from and letters from Rabbi Schneerson. I think he is talking about beyond nature, meaning going to spirit, really getting in touch with our soul's needs and desires and wants for a better world. But somehow we're mired in all of this muck, all of this materialism, all of this greed and sin and whatever the vices are. You can list them. And I think, you know, that message was directed to me because I received it in my email. And if you want to take it on as realizing that we have to, in order to leap, in order to bound forward, we have to bend first like a spring and then move. And we're in the deepest of the, I think we're really, that spring is down to the bottom. At least that's how I feel.
Yep. Well, basically, I mean, what I'm here to talk about today is a subject that I have now been teaching for the better part of 3 decades that basically confirms the spiritual things that you said in the reality of science. Let me just begin by giving some basic information about toxic substances and the environment. Today, if you went to the EPA website and knew where to go to, bottom line is that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency lists over 250,000 substances, all man-made substances that have a regulatory agreement, that has a charter, that has a certificate from the EPA in order for it to be used. These substances are primarily organic compounds. Okay, we call them POPs, persistent organic compounds. And take a look around you. Wherever you are right now, I don't care where you are, unless you're sitting in a canoe in the middle of a lake, you are surrounded by man-made things. The chair you're sitting on, the desk you're writing on, the electronic equipment that you're surrounded by, your pen, your computer, everything is man-made. And in fact, when you take a look at man-made compounds, this goes back to the famous DuPont euphemism, better living through chemistry. And indeed, you take a look particularly at the world, the developed world since World War II, we have developed a organic chemistry type, a incredible industry throughout the developed world in Europe, in the United States, and Asia, where chemical engineers, this is what chemical engineers do, spend their time messing around with different organic chemicals to come up with a new product that can be used for all that stuff around you. Well, here's the reality. One of the things that anybody who is in toxicology understands with a frown on their face is the fact that these organic compounds are tested and they are certified by the EPA. The test is known as an LD50. It was developed by a scientist named Drake in 1967, and it is still used today. And if you remember a PETA, you're not going to like the LD50. Basically, I develop a new compound. That compound, as it turns out, is going to be good in microelectronics, good as a cooking substance, good as a plasticizer. I go and take 100 animals and stick them in a cage, whether they be mice, rats, cats, or dogs, and I begin feeding them this substance. At the point where 50% of the population is dead, not sick, dead, we call that the lethal dose at 50%. And it's expressed in milligrams per kilogram of weight. And that's what gets put on the certificate saying that this could be used. So, if that LD50 is relatively, modest, in other words, the joke being is that, this can't hurt me, I could put a spoonful of that on my Wheaties and have it for breakfast, we basically say that this substance is safe. Well, no, it's not. And we are entering into a whole new world of toxicology today. And this comes into the realm of carcinogens and mutagens and teratogens in our environment. And we are surrounded by them. And I'll give you some numbers in a second that shows that indeed the amount of chemical, of course, now the one in the news every day is BPA, bisphenol A, which is a phthalate chemical in all of your plastic bottles, unless it says BPA free. It is a plasticizer. We create over 100 billion of these bottles a year for all your food and all your drinks and everything you buy daily, your 2-liter Coke bottle. It is cheap. It is effective. It is light. It is squishy so you can hold on to it. It doesn't break when you drop it. It's just a wonder of chemistry, better living through chemistry. Now we're finding out, day by day, it's in the newspaper practically every day, that you feed it to your kids, they're going to be retarded. Their IQ's going to go down. It's going to interfere with their hormone system. Okay, it's known as an endocrine disruptor. It is going to mess with the development of your body, and when accumulated over long periods of time, this is not the LD50, this is drinking 5 babas of Diet Coke a day for 20 years in bisphenol A bottles, yields cancer in a substantial amount of our population. The word for this is chronic toxicity, not acute, but chronic toxicity. We are surrounded by it. Everywhere we go, the big article in the paper the other day was inorganic arsenic in the world's rice. Not our rice, the world's rice, whether it's Asian, South American, Louisianan, all the rice in the world, which of course is grown in rice paddies in water, is accumulating inorganic arsenic. Where is it from? It's from pesticides and wood preservatives that have been used around the world. It is very persistent, back to that word again, persistent pollutant in our environment. It's taken up by the rice, and we eat it all the time. If I eat a pound of rice, am I going to die? No, absolutely not. Would I even perhaps have symptoms? In all likelihood, no. On the other hand, rice supplies 52% of the caloric intake of the entire human race. When a person is eating rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week for their entire lives, and they are bioaccumulating inorganic arsenic, a class 1A carcinogen, how many cases of cancer are we seeing simply due to eating of rice? The bottom line is, Debbie, is I could go on for 6 hours giving you thousands of examples of what we are finding out. I might add, for those local viewers, that the number one research organization in the world studying this is right down the block from us in the Research Triangle Park. It's called the NIEHS, National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, over 1,000 MDs and PhDs there, studying the effects of man-made chemicals on our health. And the kinds of things they come up with, at first, almost seem loony, because when they're first published, again, the industry, the greed will come out and say, oh, give me a break. You know, there's only so much in this bottle, or so much in your food container, or so much in your rice, or so much in your tofu. And then it comes out the fact that indeed, when you follow the transmission of these substances through the environment and into our bodies over a period of 20 and 30 years, they are toxic. They are causing neural disease, they are causing retardation, they are causing cancer, and in some cases, mutagenesis, leading to miscarriage and stillbirth in our children. A horrible case of that in Camp Lejeune over on the coast of North Carolina, recently published.
Can I butt in?
What's in the drinking water. I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to let the folks know, if they're out there in the listening area in the United States, you can call in to ask Dr. Bob a question at 919-518-9773. And if you're an international listener, viewer, you can call in via your Skype at computers, the number 2, K voice. And so you can get in if you can stop him from talking, because I know he goes a mile a minute, and you can.
Well, somebody needs to stop me.
You can talk for 6 hours straight, and you actually talk for 8 hours straight at school, giving lectures one after the other. He's got, I never actually gave you a formal introduction, and I should really do that. So I'm going to do that now. Dr. Robert Bruck is an alumni, distinguished professor of plant pathology, forestry, and environmental science, and environmental technology and management at North Carolina State University. Dr. Bruck received his undergraduate degree from Buff State College in New York, the PhD from Syracuse University in New York, postdoctoral work at Cornell University, and he has been teaching and doing research at North Carolina State University for 33 years. He's well known in the mountain parts here for working on air pollution and global climate change. He has too many honors and awards to even mention. It could cover a couple of walls. He also did a special, what was your documentary with?
Documentary was The Search for Clean Air on PBS Nova.
And that was an award-winning program that
won an Emmy.
Yep. And in 1997, he was granted the Laureate of North Carolina Award for Science by the Governor of North Carolina. He also, over these years, developed the Department of Environmental Technology at the university and teaches environmental science classes to over, can you count it, 3,000 students a year. So right now he's got 1,800 students taking his courses and listening to the kind of thing that you're getting a chance to hear him talk about today. And we're talking about toxins in the environment. On a personal note, well, everybody calls him the walking encyclopedia. I don't know. And his students have deemed him, awarded a crown of Mr. Planet. And his little picture is up there for you to see on Homeopathy World Community.
That's Dr. Planet to you.
Oh, is it Dr. Planet? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I reduced your title. It's Dr. Planet. And, all of our lives together, and it's been more than 50, it feels like 50, no, it's about 45 years together. His whole striving has been to save the world. And he continues to do that, but he needs your help. Everybody out there, he needs your help. You're going to have to support him by doing something at home. And that's one of the questions that I have to ask. Mm-hmm. I have about 2 or 3 questions. One, you mentioned one thing, arsenic, which is prevalent in the environment. But we have so many toxins being imposed upon the health of our growth, upon our children, upon our everything in nature. It's not just the arsenic. It's
correct.
It's acid.
Let me give you an example. Last
How
year,
are we still alive?
Okay, well, that's the question. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. But last year, the New York Times ran an article that was quite shocking. It made the front page, yet everybody seems to ignore it. What they did was they took over 1,000 municipal drinking water samples from throughout the United States, either from wells or from the actual city drinking water supply. And they brought it to a testing laboratory, and they did a very, very detailed GC mass spectrophotometer analysis of this water. And it made national headlines because what it comes down to, I'll just summarize it in this way. We all go to the store and we buy a bottle of Aquafina or Dasani, and we pay $1.50 for that bottle. Now, of course, we already mentioned the fact that the bottle is filled with bisphenol A and phthalates, which is poison, but that's beside the point. The water itself, you ready for this? I mean, when you talk about this, I still have the article in my file. People look at you like you're nuts. The average amount of pollution in the water of municipal drinking water supplies, this is the average, contains 123 prescription pharmaceutical drugs. That's the average. The highest was over 500. So, now how does that happen? Okay, well, let's talk about it in good old biological sense. Basically, you go to the doctor and you get an antibiotic. You get a birth control pill. You get a pain reliever. You get anti-anxiety, antipsychotic, anti-depression. And, of course, we sell hundreds of billions of dollars of these drugs every year. When you take these drugs, it is purposely made, which is correct. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. It is purposely made that the amount of drug that you are taking is a minimum of double of what your body actually needs. This is to make sure that you get a therapeutic dose of a pharmacological substance. Where does the rest of it go? You pee it out. These are almost always water-soluble drugs. It goes into your toilet. It goes into either the septic tank, which is going to get down into the groundwater. It goes to the municipal sewage treatment plant, which is not able to clean up these very large biological molecules that are in your pee-pee in the water, and it ends up going back into the river, the lake, the estuary, or the groundwater. Basically, if you drink water in the United States, you are getting a low dose of tens or hundreds of man-made pharmacological substances in every gulp that you take. Again, let me remind you, is a bottle of Dasani going to harm you or kill you? In all likelihood, no. We're back to that LD50 analogy. There isn't enough of it in there. But there are milligrams, micrograms, or nanograms of hundreds of these substances. What happens if you drink 3 or 4 bottles a day? What happens if you simply go to your tap and take 3 or 4 8-ounce glasses of water a day? We say drink more water. Sorry, folks, unless you are drinking reverse osmosis or distilled water, you are drinking these compounds. Question, what about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of drinking it? What is the net
okay, I'm going to pause and I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
There's one in the chat from Kathy that is, could Dr. Bruck say something about the effects of toxins on fertility?
Absolutely.
And then Mr. M is asking about a good filtration system.
Okay.
And I have a statement about homeopathics. One of the things that we know homeopathically is that each individual is sensitive to different items, to substances, triggers, irritants, and those people are going to exhibit some kind of symptom.
Yep.
But the God, I have so many questions. Like,
well, let's take them one at a time.
Oh, okay. Go ahead with the fertility question.
Okay, the fertility question, that is a very interesting question because now we're getting into the realm of hormones, or what's also known as endocrine disruptors. We already talked about BPA. Okay, basically, here is a astounding fact that I talk about in my class, which even I have a hard time believing. Here's what's going on. In 1950, you have a married couple going, they get married, they're 22 years old, and they try to have a baby. And 2 years later, 3 years later, no baby. Okay? They go to the doctor. The doctor looks at the male sperm, gives an internal to the female, and approximately 90% of the time, the problem was with the female. She had endometriosis. She had scarring of the fallopian tubes, and she could not get pregnant. Okay? Guess what? Here in 2010, infertility among married couples is now one of the greatest problems facing people in particularly urban areas today. And the bottom line is, ready for this? 65% of all couple infertility come from men who are either not producing sperm, not producing enough sperm, or producing sperm that is not viable in order to fertilize the egg. Why?
All of those stuff in the environment.
Basically, what it is, and this is one of the huge things going on in toxicology right now, are exoestrogens, estrogens in our environment. Men are becoming feminized. That's not my language. Men, particularly in urban areas, are becoming feminized. The reason is that many of these compounds that I'm talking about, those POPs, those persistent organic compounds, act as estrogen-mimicking compounds in the body. In women, now here, you're not going to like this, okay? 70 years ago, the incidence of metastatic breast cancer in urban populations was 1 in 60 women. Today, it's 1 in 5. The latest data is showing that the excess estrogen that women are receiving, and estrogen is a lipophilic compound, it bonds to fat. Boobs are made out of fat, are inducing mutations. Men are becoming feminized by exoestrogens. And yes, that water bottle of yours, BPA, is an exoestrogen. What is the matter with this country? It's banned in Europe, it's banned in Canada, it's banned in Australia because it's a multi-billion-dollar business here. No one will touch it with a 10-foot pole in terms of wanting to ban it from our society. Okay? But the reality is people are being made infertile and or getting cancer from these exoestrogens in the environment, and they are ubiquitous. They're all over. Now, one thing I'm just going to mention quickly, and we'll move on, is that one of the things that is counterintuitive, if you're a vegetarian, what is the one thing that we started using back in the 60s and 70s that everybody loves to use? Soybean. The joke I have is if you go to Whole Foods and pick up 100 different products, 98 of them will have soybean in it. Soybean extract, soybean protein, tofu, whatever is in it. Soybean, okay, contains genistin. Genistin is a natural protein in soy that acts as an estrogen-mimicking compound. What is the bottom line?
And you're not you're not even talking about the GMO because it's all GMO.
No, I'm talking about regular soybean, okay? The reality is that if you have 1 or 2 servings a week, not that big a deal. But vegetarians, the healthiest among us all, use soy every day in order to get their protein. It has 17% protein in it. They are being overdosed. The FDA has considered a warning label that gets voted down every time regarding the use of soy products. Long answer to short question. But the fact is that fertility, particularly in Western urbanized people, are being severely affected by toxins in the environment. The next question, I believe, was about filtration. Is that correct?
Yeah. We had a question from Dr. M about filtration.
Okay. Well, first of all, if you're going to go all the way, okay, you put a reverse osmosis filter system on your house or on your faucet, under your sink. And this way all your cooking and drinking water is pure. It is not cheap. Now, just recently, because I was talking about this in my class, I did some research on these pitchers that you have, okay? Yeah. You have Brita and you have Pure, okay? Sorry, probably get sued by somebody. It's a hoax. Why is it a hoax? Basically, these typical pitchers, all they have is activated charcoal. Activated charcoal will take the chlorine out of the water, so it smells and tastes a lot better. On the other hand, those cost about $25 a piece, those pitchers. For $50, you can buy a pitcher filtration system called Zero Water, Z-E-R-O Water. And it is recommended by Consumer Reports. It is a pitcher. It is more complicated. The filters cost more to replace, but it has been proven to remove most of the organic compounds that are in your drinking water supply, and even more importantly, lead, cadmium, arsenic, and mercury are eliminated from the water. So this is something you can buy, fill it up with tap water, put it in your refrigerator, and use it as a drinking water supply. Second to reverse osmosis, probably the best system that's out there right now.
People are concerned about also showering and bathing. Your
you have
body,
to have a whole house system.
Yeah, because your body, your skin is the respiratory system. It absorbs everything, and you get under the shower, and all of that is just going right on you. So,
But to have a whole house reverse osmosis system would cost multiple thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Some people do it. I mean, if that is of great concern to you, you're going to do it. The price keeps coming down all the time on these systems, but still, it costs a lot of money to be able to do it. Of course, really what we should be demanding is that our municipal water supply clean it up in the first place. But, again, what do? They say, we've identified 3,000 different compounds in the Jordan Lake water supply. However, none of them, this is a quote, okay, from the State Department of Environment and Natural Resources, none of them exceed the EPA standard. What does the EPA standard mean? It means it will make you acutely sick. That's not what this entire discussion is about. There's very few things in our environment or our food that if you eat it, you're going to get sick right away. The question is what about over decades of time? Are we going to prematurely die or become sick from heinous diseases due to the toxins that are found throughout our environment?
I want to give Dr. Deepak a chance to ask a question or comment, and I still have tons of things. You can imagine Dr. Bob and me sitting at the dinner table. We go at it with the conversations about the world every evening. Go ahead.
Every evening.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Bruck, I am very heartened to hear about the soya beans, that the soya beans causes the fertility in the world. And but what is the alternate of the soya proteins that we can give to a patient or advise to anyone?
Dr. Deepak, that's a good question, and it's problematic. Okay. Basically, soy was a wonderful substitute for meat. Okay, the fact is there's no way of getting that hormone out of the soybeans. Okay, the other thing that can be done are, of course, beans, any kind of legume.
Broccoli is good.
Okay, well, broccoli's not bad, but broccoli's about 5% protein, whereas something like soy or a good bean or a good nuts, okay, can go as high as 15 to 17%. So the fact is that there are things out there, but then again, I hate to say this, but you come all the way around and say, are those beans grown organically, or are they filled with pesticides?
Or GMO.
Are your peanuts properly inspected that you do not have aflatoxin, another environmental toxin in them? In other words, if people are looking for really easy, quick answers as to what is safe to eat, you're asking the wrong guy, because I don't know. Your milk is contaminated. Your food is contaminated. Again, I emphasize, not to the point where you take a bite and you end up going to the emergency room, but when you are constantly being exposed to small levels of toxins, they bioaccumulate and biomagnify in your body. You said the exact right thing, Debbie, a few minutes ago. Some people are going to react violently over a short period of time. They'll die from cancer in their 20s due to this exposure. Other people who smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, drink a quart of moonshine alcohol, and eat fatback and biscuits die at 107 years old in their sleep. So, in other words, there's no way of predicting for a given individual how they're going to react. On the other hand, the ubiquitous exposure of all of this material okay, to the human population unquestionably is having an epidemiological effect on people throughout the world.
I would say, Dr. Bob, that what we're seeing in this generation, the young generation, are the effects of the damage that has been done over our parents and our generation, and now in the next two generations, of obesity, high rates of obesity and diabetes, high rates of cancer in young people, which has never, ever been seen before, cancer in organs that have never been seen before. All of these things are happening because of what's going on in our environment.
Well, how do you like this article that just came out of the whatchamacallit, the NIEHS on BPA causing obesity? If you drink even water, forget about Coke, forget about Pepsi, forget about Gatorade, if you drink out of these soft plastic bottles as a child, your chances of being obese by the age of 20, you ready for this? 300% higher? 300%, not 4%. I was all over the news.
And I
read it 5 times. I couldn't believe it.
And it's not as if a child can do something about it by exercising or changing their diet on the fact that these things are implicated in it. If the parents are no longer breastfeeding, if they're giving a bottle with the soybean milk products, which is compounds that are designed by the chemical corporations, that's a problem. And also the foods. You know, there's almost nothing that you can get by with that doesn't have soy in it.
That's my point. It's all got soy in it.
And they might have it written in another name. I'd have to look up what kind of proteins that they call it and other kinds of substances. So you really do have to read the labels, and we're also fighting for the right to be able to know what is in the products because they're not fairly labeling that.
Well, that's the big issue in the United States. We are the only Western nation in the world now that doesn't require a listing of GMOs. Okay, there's no label. There's no mandatory label in the United States for genetically modified organisms.
I just heard...
Every other country requires it.
I just heard, I think I sent you an email about it. It was, how much was Monsanto and the other big corporations paying for a campaign not to label something?
$117 million, a campaign against labeling GMOs.
It's crazy. So we're fighting this big monster, but we as individuals must do something. We have to...
Your problem is that Monsanto gives tens of millions of dollars away to senators and congressmen and say, don't pass this bill. Okay, I'm sorry, but you live in a corrupt society. Vote for Jill Stein.
Yay, Jill. So I have another question.
Yeah.
I always have a lot more than one. One is about the cumulative effects of all of these things, and yet if you go to an insurance agent, they tell you that we're all living longer. That our wonderful technology and chemistry and everything, that we have drugs and we have all these systems in the healthcare system. So is that a lie? Because I'll tell you what, I don't believe anything that anybody tells me today.
It's not a lie, and be careful when you say we're all living longer. In the Western world, in Europe, in the United States, we are living longer, and the major reason is, if you take a look at a morbidity and a mortality table for, let's say, 1930, you will see that the top 20 killer diseases in the United States and Europe were all infectious disease. All of them. Influenza, tuberculosis, the list goes on in terms of infectious diseases. Those infectious diseases have not been totally eradicated, but many of them have been put to the wayside due to antibiotics. Now, that's said. On the other hand, in class the other day, I was talking about Mali, a large sub-Saharan country in Africa, where the average mortality of their population is 37 for men and 39 for women. That's how long they live. If they make it to 50 years old, they are ancient, where we call them middle age in this country. That's because they do not have access to hygiene and they do not have access to antibiotics. Now, putting that aside and back to the topic we're talking about, even, and this is something of tremendous writing and people that are being objective about it, we have spent over $1 trillion on cancer research over the past 50 years worldwide. It is the number one research topic when it comes to biomedical research, and probably should be. One of the little secrets that they are not telling you is that cancer rates are going up and not down. The only reason for this, it cannot be because of evolution or genetics, the time is too short, is environmental. And we know that. We don't like to talk about it. So the answer is yeah. Okay, your chances of dying from an infectious disease, I mean, now you don't die from AIDS. You have this 3-drug cocktail